Ladies and gentle gamers, welcome back to Be Determined. Today we got a brand new update with the Crimson Isles. A lot of it's pretty similar to what it has been on the alpha in the past, which I've talked about in previous videos. But just in case you haven't seen that, we're going to go over everything that is new. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to drop a like, smash the sub button. I'm planning on getting some guides out around these changes, specifically Kudra and maybe some Slayers. So let me know in the comments what you guys want to see. And let's jump into it. So the main changes with this update is definitely with the armor sets and with unsoul binding things. So we'll start off with the armor sets, which you can first off see is unsoul bounded. Basically, if you haven't museumed it, your armor set should be unsoul bound even if you've started up pretty high. You can see mine is fiery, but I could just take it and sell it on the auction house if I wanted to. Now, it won't show up on my sets because I have combat 60, but some of you may have noticed you may not be able to use some of your sets anymore. Basic tier Crimson requires combat 22, and this applies to all of the armor sets related to Kudra, by the way. So for Crimson, Terror, Aurora, Fervor, and Hollow, all of these changes apply, but you have to be combat 22 to use base tier. To use hot tier, you have to be combat 27. For burning, you have to be combat 32. For fiery, 37, and infernal, 42. Plus, for each tier, you have to have their respective Kudra completion. So on top of needing combat 22 to use basic tier Crimson, you also need to have killed a tier 1 Kudra. And on top of combat 42 for infernal, you have to have killed an infernal Kudra. On top of the requirements to each armor set, they also added some changes and nerfs/buffs. I won't get too into specifics. I'll just show some of the text that was in the patch notes on screen here, but you can see I'm in Fiery Crimson and I'm doing 1.6 million to these zombies. Whereas normally before this, I probably would have done about 800 to 900k. But if I get the swipe to proc, which you do get stacks now on regular hits instead of kills for Crimson, that is a pretty big buff. But if I get a swipe to proc, you'll notice that the swipe does a lot less damage. Let's get close to these guys. This should hit 600k right there. So normally my swipe would have been the majority of the damage. Basically, they've kind of swapped around the roles. So normally I would have done 600k and then done like a 1.6 mil swipe. Now you do 1.6 mil and then like a 600k swipe. So the damage from the swipe is a lot worse, but that lets them kind of patch all of the crazy Slayer one-shots that were in the game based off of Crimson Swipe. So it's kind of annoying for the E-Man Slayer players who were using like Midas Staff specifically with Crimson, because now whenever you hit something with magic damage, you can see my swipes are not going up and my Dominus stacks don't go up either. So you don't swipe, you don't Dominus stack whenever you hit something with magic damage. It does still proc with arrows. If you have full stacks and you shoot something with arrows, it will still swipe. But as far as magic damage goes, it does not swipe anymore. They did also make it so that the first time swipe hits a mob, it's going to do double the damage that it normally would. It can also trigger multiple times on the same mob. So I don't know if it used to be that it could only hit once, but now it can hit multiple times. But the big change for Crimson specifically is you can see the difference between Fiery and Infernal. Fiery gets 0.1 swing range and 2 ferocity per stack of Dominus, whereas when you get to Infernal, you get that plus 10 additive damage, which is a pretty significant buff. So the difference between Fiery and Infernal is a major difference, and that's going to be the case with most of these armor sets. So with Terror as well, with Aurora, all of these different sets, having Infernal versus Fiery is going to be a lot more important than it used to be. But you can see how quickly I'm able to kill one of these T5s. It's actually insane how good Crimson is, especially against a lot of these Slayers. It's really good against E-Man as well. It's just you can't use the right click. You know, you can't do mage damage. But left click melee Crimson is still really powerful. Because of these changes to Crimson, they did also make some changes to Blaze Slayer and E-Man to make them a bit easier. And they also added 45 combat wisdom to the maxed out Slayer weapons. So some of the lower level Slayer weapons don't give as much combat wisdom, but every Slayer weapon now gives combat wisdom towards that specific mob. So you can see my Axe of the Shredded now gains 45 combat wisdom against zombies, which is pretty nice. The same thing's the case for the Blaze Daggers. It's 45 combat wisdom against blazes. And for the Atom Split Katana, it's wisdom against Enderman. They did also buff the maximum amount of kill progress you can get from a kill. It used to be 50% when they deleted rev trading from the game. People were doing that a lot during Derpy, and they did a lot outside of Derpy, even when Crimson Isle first came out. But after they patched that, they added a 50% max to killing a mob. Like, it would give you a maximum of getting you halfway to spawning in your Slayer. Now it's a max of 75%, so spawning Slayers is a lot faster than it used to be, which is really, really nice. They also increased the base damage of a lot of the Enderman katanas by 25%, as well as the crit damage, and increase the delay of the Void Boom Seraph going into hits phase, and reduce the duration of its beams phase. So killing E-mans is a lot faster. Plus, you can phase skip a lot of them if you have really solid Crimson and can do a lot of damage. Just to show that, you can see I'm doing 4.4 mil with my Atom Split Katana right now. And again, this is Fiery Crimson. Infernal Crimson is way, way stronger. So if you get your hands on that set, then it's going to be just a whole nother beast. But you can see how fast we spawn these bosses right here. I'm going to throw this down. They did increase the explosive, like, radius of explosive arrows. So you do have to be kind of careful with that now. But you can see how fast we get them into hits phase now, as well as beams phase. And this beams phase takes like no time at all. Right there, it just ended. And so then we go ahead and get through hits phase again, and then try and deal as much damage as possible. And he's in hits phase as well as beams once again, but we're going to try and deal as much damage to him as we can. And there he is through hits phase, and once again we take him down before he gets into his last beam phase. So if you do a good amount of damage, it is pretty easy to do some phase skips here, and that was without me sweating using like rag axe or anything crazy like that. Now, there was a method to one tap blaze, which has been patched, and of course with the Crimson changes, the one taps for E-man have also been patched. And the way that they patched blaze was by nerfing this burning vengeance ability. It basically just has a damage cap now, which that damage cap is 50 mil, so it shouldn't really affect you if you weren't going for the one tap, but if you were, it's no longer possible. They also changed the Instone Sword as well, so it now has a max damage reduction and max damage. But the main reason people use Instone Sword is to mana drain, and they haven't really changed how mana draining works, so if you use it for that, this shouldn't really affect you that much. Now, they did also make some changes to the other armor sets, like I said. You can see the changes to Terror here. It does slightly less damage, I think, but it's not all that noticeable, to be honest, mainly because they also nerfed the health of Kudra, and that's the main place they use Terror at. But I was fighting the Mage Outlaw with it earlier, and I was still doing really, really fast bosses. So it might be slightly less damage, but again, it's not really noticeable. Now, Aurora kind of got a buff with this update. The homing missiles do actually decent damage now, which the homing missiles is its new ability that got added with this update, if you didn't know. It's supposed to do less damage with Wither Impact, like the missiles do less damage while using that, but with every other skill or every other ability, it's going to be pretty powerful. They also buffed the Aurora helmet, so now if you max it out, it does more damage than Wither Goggles. So it's really expensive to make it better than Wither Goggles, but it is possible to do now. Fervor also has a new ground pound ability, which, just like the Aurora set, its ability activates whenever you hit sneak. So whatever your sneak button is, for most people it's shift. You just press that at 10 stacks and it'll activate the ability. They also fully revamped the hollow armor set. Specifically, the wand got revamped more than the set, which you can see all of its abilities right here and all of what they do. But that's all of the armor changes in a nutshell. Let's talk about the trophy fishing changes and lava fishing changes. If you go into your player menu, you can go to miscellaneous stats and see that trophy fish chance is now a stat, which you used to have a base trophy chance of like 20%. That's no longer the case. You have to gain it from different places now. You start off with 0, but they did add a lot more trophy fish chance to the game, starting with the Diamond Hunter armor. If you wear the full set now, you get a bonus 30 trophy fish chance, plus you get extra fishing speed per star upgrade on the armor, so that's an additive buff as well. They also buffed all of the trophy fishing rods, so Magma Rod now gives 15% trophy fish chance instead of 10%, Inferno Rod gives 20 instead of 15, and Hellfire gives 25 instead of 20. Plus, depending on the level of your Odger's Tooth, you get 1 trophy fishing chance per level. So if it's bronze, you get 1%, silver 2%, gold 3%, and diamond 4%. They also majorly buffed a lot of the catch rates. So vanilla, you get an 8% chance to catch now, whereas it used to be 3. Karate fish got doubled from 1% to 2%. Slugfish is buffed from 10% to 15%. Blobfish 15 to 25. and golden fish now spawn nearly twice as often. With the adjusted rates, trophy fishing should be less than 100 hours total for most players, which is still a long time, but it's a lot better than it used to be. But if you have already completed your trophy fishing, don't forget to claim the diamond trophy fish that you get from Odger. He now gives an extra 20 diamond trophy fish. So if you go in here, go to Odger and trophy fishing rewards, make sure to claim from the master trophy fisher. Because again, that is 20 extra diamond magma fish, which when I sold mine was about 140 million coins. They also adjusted the lava fishing treasure loot pool, so you can catch like lumino fibers and leather cloths and things like that. So low key might be easier to do than actually killing an Ash Fang for that lumino fiber for the mage quest line, because they did patch the Ash Fang bug, I believe. I was trying to do it solo earlier, and after a few minutes I still hadn't killed it, so they either really reduce the damage or it's just not possible anymore. So I think they shadow patched it. But that brings us to the next thing, which is the Great Unsoul Binding. If you look on Bazaar, you can go to the combat section and then Crimson Isle, which is a whole new section that has all of the mob drops which just got unsoul bound. So you can sell catalides, flames, gazing pearls, all of this other stuff for tons and tons of coins. Personally, I recommend not selling it right now because everyone is selling it, and so all the prices are really, really low. But if you wait a month or two, then it'll probably go back up. So unless you really need the money, I'd recommend waiting. But they've also got the mini boss section, so you can buy lumino fibers and rekindled ember fragments, all this nice stuff. And the special section where you can sell nether stars for a pretty solid chunk of coins. And Kudra teeth as well are here. You can also sell the blaze talisman on the auction house. So if you don't have this in your arsenal yet, you can buy it for about 6 million coins at the moment. Also, you can sell netherrack looking sunshades, but apparently they go for so little, or their buy limit is so little, that people are only setting them up as auctions instead of bins. But you can also sell your rekindled ember armor as well. On top of this, they also nerfed the amount of kills you need for all of the different mini bosses on the Crimson Isle. So Barb Duke, Mage Outlaw, Blade Soul, Ash Fang, and the Magma Boss, they all have bestiaries that max out at 500 now, instead of what used to be 1000. They also nerfed Lord Jobus to 100 kills instead of 270, and Pyroclastic Worms down to 1000 instead of 4000. They also changed how the factions work, so you can be active in both factions and not lose rep in the other faction. And that is because they did add SkyBlock XP, so if you are max faction rep in one faction, that gives 75 XP, and you get 75 for being maxed in the other one as well. So if you're looking for some ways to get SkyBlock XP, that's a good way to do it. Got to start doing dailies. On top of that, you don't have to claim your faction quests at the quest board whenever you want to start them. They just automatically start every day, and you can just claim the rewards once you've done it at the quest board instead of having to go there to start them before you do the quest. You can also re-roll Kudra chests with Kismet feathers, which is pretty nice, but at the moment it's not really relevant. All Kudra chests are profit because Crimson Essence is so inflated because of this. Plus, they nerfed the price of Kudra keys as well, so keys are really, really cheap. But that's the majority of the things with this update. They did talk about what's coming up next, though. They want to do more changes with the Crimson Isle, specifically reworking Habanera tactics to be useful, because right now it's just expensive and useless. They also want to add an optional way to negate your trophy fishing chance, which I think they should just do like they do with the pest talisman on the garden, where you can just disable bonus pest chance. They should just add it to Odger's tooth and just make it so you can turn it off. They also want to make Crimson Swipe not be magic damage, because right now you can't crit with it. It just does a flat number of damage no matter what, but apparently that's going to be pretty complicated to do, so we'll see if they can get it done. They also want to rework Rend because it can't be balanced the way that it is right now, which is fair. And they want to find a way to let players get the newly unsoulbound items back to let them sell their items if they so desire. I think they're talking about museuming. Like if you museumed your Infernal Crimson set and you want to sell it now, maybe adding a way where you could soulbind a different Crimson set and unsoulbind the current one that you have. That's all the short-term stuff that they want to do in the near future, but in the far future, they want to make Kudra more accessible for players with lower gear, make the reputation quest system a bit easier to do, and revamp the mechanics of Crimson Isle mini-boss. So that's a pretty decent list of changes. All of them should be pretty good. But let me know what you guys think about this update in the comments. And once again, make sure to tell me what guides you want to see in the future. I'm planning on doing a Kudra guide and maybe some guides to some Slayers. But let me know what y'all want to see. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have an amazing rest of your day, and God bless.